much energy. Sorry.
There's the intro.
Oh, great.
They let it talk down when I'm not around, yeah. It's only tied down when I'm out of town, no. I don't trust many when I'm in the city. I've never been a shooter, but I keep them with me. Watch them steal the style and say they inspire. Bitch, I've been a boss who wanna get higher. They let it talk down when I'm not.
What's good, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talk Down. It's Ryan, and I'm here with Juan. And today we got a special guest, goes by the name of Jill.
Yeah, so before we let Jill introduce herself, I'm going to hijack this a little bit, and I'm going to let you know how we came across Jill, because the world of social media, it blessed us with this person here. Actually, I was browsing social media, and someone reposted something that she put, so I happened to drill down into her page. I went onto her IG story, and this happened to be around the same time that we had the controversy with George Floyd and that untimely death. Jill was fighting the good fight. I was so proud of her, and I was like, wait, is she Dominican? And I saw that she was Dominican. And I was like, all right, perfect. Yeah. So I reached out to her and I told her, based on everything that she was writing, everything that she was putting up, and I was sharing a lot of it. I said, we need you on this show, especially now because our show is to not only talk up positive things, but talk down negative things. And she would be a perfect person to jump on with us because she's very eloquent from what I saw. So without further ado, Jill, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Jill. I am 21. I'm a student going into my 5th year in college because given all that's happened, I've decided to change my major to law. So I went from biology to marketing to law. I am Dominican. I was born in New York and we moved to Florida a long time ago. So I was basically raised in Florida. Just being Dominican and having family that is darker skin and having family that is of lighter skin, I've always had the racial tension and struggles of what it is to identify as a white person or a black person or just a brown person.
Right.
Ever since Trayvon Martin and, farther back, I've always felt this, I've always felt a personal mission to kind of help change the world. And I know that sounds like a big mission statement, but I genuinely mean it. I want to do everything that I can to change the community around me. And then if I change the community around myself, then they change the communities around themselves and then, the world. Especially with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, I've taken it very personally because not only do I have family that is Black and I am Afro-Latina, my best friends are Black and predominantly Black men. And whenever I see a tragedy like this happen, I see the faces of my own friends and my own family, and it strikes me to my core. So I feel like if I have a platform, whether it be 2,000 or 20,000 followers, the people that follow me are following me for a reason. And so I'm going to make them listen whether they like it or not. And if they don't like it, they can unfollow. And if they do like it, then they're just going to keep seeing it because I'm not going to stop until there's change.
Okay, good. So before, I know we're going to actually talk about the social media aspect a little bit before we get into our topic. When you started posting this, when you started saying, I'm going to make an effort, this is what I'm going to do, and you're going to have to deal with it, unfollow me if you don't like it. The followers versus followers, do you feel like you lost a lot more followers that you didn't, that even some that surprised you?
Absolutely. So I've never been one to care how many followers I have or who follows me or whatever. But when I started posting all of this, I didn't realize that I had such a huge following of people who either didn't see racially what was going on in this country, or they either turned a blind eye to it, they didn't care about it, or they genuinely felt like it didn't happen or it wasn't happening. And by that, I mean they're racist.
Right.
Because I feel like if you live in this country and you can't at least acknowledge what's happening, even if you're not a part of the community or you are, if you can't even acknowledge what's happening in this country, then to me, you're racist because you're sitting in a bubble of privilege. And it is a privilege to insert and remove yourself in conversations of race because you're not wearing the conversation on your skin.
Right.
So yes, I had a lot of people unfollow me. When I started to notice the number going down, it was my friend. She told me about an app where you can, see who the people are that unfollow you. And so I was like, oh, it'll be interesting to see who they are. And I was blown away. I could not even believe, people that I had grown up with, people that, I thought were allies of the Black community, that I thought never, had an issue with what was going on and would be the people posting, because, you know, the whole algorithm and stuff, you don't see everybody.
Exactly.
So I was like, oh my gosh, really? You too? Like, you? Like, this is crazy. And I didn't reach out to those people, because if I did, probably wouldn't be sitting here. You'd be calling me from jail.
We'd be your one phone call.
And I take it. But yeah, no, I was surprised. I was genuinely shocked, but I was kind of okay with it. Because on one hand, I was like, damn, like, I really want these people, like, if you're unfollowing me, you're the people that need to see this the most.
Exactly.
So it was kind of like, I want to just send you the stuff that I'm posting. I want to send you the things that I'm reposting. I want to send you the videos that I'm making, that I'm talking, and, you know, I want to shove it in your face until you get it. But on the other hand, I was like, I don't want these people in my circle. I don't want other people seeing that these people follow me and I follow them. I don't want anything to do with these people. So it was kind of like bittersweet that they were leaving. Yeah. But I'm glad that they're gone, because I've noticed, at least, like, oh my God, in the beginning, it went from racist central in my DMs telling me that I'm wrong and that I should just back off and whatever, to now, like, there's just so much positivity. Like, I open Instagram now and I never feel nervous. I just know that there's, like, happy people just waiting there, you know, just to talk, and we share Black businesses and we talk about things without barriers and stuff. So for me, it was a blessing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That round of applause for Jill, guys. Let's give it up.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that. I know Juan was saying, and I think we talked about it when we first got introduced to each other, and you were like, that you always did feel this way, right? And not that you felt that you were scared to talk about it. You just wanted it to be known even more, right? And you weren't afraid to lose, like you said earlier, whatever it was. It wasn't about the followers. It was about being right and being, I want to say of the people, but you just want to defend what's wrong, right? And then as you were able, and you, like you just said before, you can hop on Instagram now, and it's like you feel more confidently that you can fully express what the truth is. Mm-hmm. For people that were following you and they unfollowed you because they are ignorant to the fact that these things are happening in this world and it's not affecting them, so they don't really care about it. So, and again, it doesn't affect us as much, but we get to a point where it's like, even if it's not affecting us, we still have to defend the people that are getting affected.
Yeah, it goes back to what Jill said during our meet and greet. It was come back to morals.
Yes.
If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, we have to call it out, because it's not. That's our responsibility as humans.
Mm-hmm. In past years, and I'm going to say the last 4 years, when our government elected a leader, or when the people, I say the government because really, like, with the whole electoral college and everything, I could get into that too.
But I'm not going to. Electoral college elected a president.
So when the president was elected in 2016, I was a freshman in college, and college is a time where you step outside of your bubble and you're exposed to so many things.
Yes.
And I was always raised because growing up in Naples, Florida, I am surrounded by very affluent, predominantly Caucasian people. Mm-hmm. So I was taught from a very young age, you respect everyone regardless of the color of their skin. Mm-hmm. And the way that I was raised, not only by my parents, but by school, you know, TV, whatever, the things that you do not talk about with strangers are religion and politics. And I have always personally felt that that's wrong. And the reason I feel that is because we're taught not to talk about it. So when the conversations do come up, they're inflammatory. I think that it should be changed to teach children and people in general that these are conversations that should be had in a civil manner. So going back to 2016, I started college and I was exposed to so many different, you know, religions and people and opinions and ideologies and, you know, so much. I said, no matter who you are, no matter what your political preference is or your religion, we can get along even if we disagree.
100%.
In recent times, though, I've had to edit that statement a little bit because I feel like if we have differing political opinions, if we have differing religious views, we can agree. But we cannot agree to disagree if the disagreement is based upon the killing of innocent people based on the color of their skin, right, or the discrimination of people based on the color of their skin.
Systemically, especially.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I am not going to ever say that I can agree to disagree or be cordial or be just friendly with someone, even if I agree that Black Lives Matter and they don't.
Right.
Even if I agree Black Lives Matter and they agree all lives matter. Because if I'm saying Black Lives Matter, then clearly I believe all lives matter.
Yeah.
if you're saying all lives matter, then you're negating the fact that a certain group of people don't matter in this country right now.
Exactly.
And so when I hear all lives matter, my guard is up, because it's like, if you cannot agree with me that Black lives matter, if you cannot say, yep, you know what, you're right, and I agree with that, in addition to all other lives, if your blanket statement is all lives matter, then I just know that you don't care about what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm either going to shy away from the conversation a little bit and change gears and make them realize their prejudice and their opinions are wrong, or just completely blatantly say you're wrong and be done with the conversation. Because at this point, I can discern who's going to listen to me and who's not. And if you're above the age of 30, I want to say, and you have a certain opinion, it will take a life-changing situation or something thrown in your face for you to change that opinion, not just a little 21-year-old girl talking to you about it.
Because you're ingrained already in those specific ideals, right? Like, you've been raised, and sometimes it even happens in the household, right? They're trained. The other day I saw a video of a woman with a Confederate flag behind her, where she is saying, I'm going to teach my grandkids to hate you. You know, spewing out the N-word. And you know, what the most unfortunate part is that legally she has a right, you know, to say what she wants to say. So the cop that's standing right next to her, right? The cop that's standing right next to her is allowing this hate to just spew out of her mouth. And it was unfortunate, because if you look in the past, nothing has changed in that regard, right? And now, like you said, 2016 has essentially allowed that silent majority that was just bubbling in anger and seeing that there is change, that at least we're trying to bring about change. You know, they're empowered, and it feels like their history is being erased, when all we want to do is have a future that's more inclusive, a future that's more diverse, and that we're actually all getting along, right? It feels like they're saying, well, we've given you this. Aren't you happy with that? You know what I mean? It feels like the minute they say, no, we want what you have. That's it. Like, we want the ability to have what you have, right? We don't want to take it from you. We want to be able to earn it. And that's what I feel about like what's going on now. But before we get into like our actual topic, we kind of already touched into it. You have a natural resources list on your IG. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I did click on it and it was like a lot to digest there.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit?
So one of the questions that I was repetitively getting throughout my entire, time posting, people were saying, okay, I'm on your side and I hear what you're saying and whatever. But the majority of the people that were saying this were white people. Mm-hmm. And they were like, what can I do? Because my mom doesn't want me out in the street protesting and, this and this and this and this. And I was like, okay, first of all, I'm not asking anyone to go outside of I am asking people to go outside of their comfort zone. That is one.
Right.
But I'm not asking people to put themselves in situations where they would never find themselves. I would never tell someone who's naturally an introvert or who's scared of being in groups of people. And especially, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Like, if you don't want to go be in a group of people to march down the street, I promise you there are other people that are going to want to do it. So cool. Don't do that, but do your part. I didn't make up this list. This wasn't my doing. Unfortunately, I don't know who did this. And if I did, I would give them credit, but I don't. Mm-hmm. But it is a link that takes you to a bunch of different things that you can do at home. So there's petitions every single day. They're updating it with petitions and things that you can sign. Justice for Breonna Taylor. Today, the killers of Ahmaud Arbery were charged with 9 counts, each one of them. So amazing. That's great news. But there's still so many things out there that need to be changed. So, those petitions are there. If you do choose to go to a protest, not like the smaller cities, but the bigger cities do have their protest schedules on there. There's even things like YouTube links where you can play. They have like a bunch of ads packed into a Black Lives Matter video where you can just keep that running in the background and it generates revenue for Black Lives Matter because it's playing their ads over and over again. It's just really a link for people to, I don't want to say lazy people, but people that just don't know where to go. Like, beyond Googling what can I do from home, like, it's right there. Okay. Click the link. Like, you have no excuse. If you see my Instagram, if you can hit a like on a picture, because I know every time I post a picture, I'm saying, hey, there's a link in my bio. If you can like that picture, I know you saw my caption, which means go to the link.
Yeah. Funny thing, when I think one of your pictures where you're talking about it, one of your pictures is like, the length of time that it took me to take this picture. That's what it takes to fill out a petition, right? Like something like that, which is super.
Yeah, I said, ever wondered how fast you can sign a petition? Click the link in my bio. Because like my captions are always funny, but like, I feel like now, especially, it doesn't matter if you have 5 followers or 100 followers. Those are still people that are watching your stuff. So the real estate that you have, what are you employing it with? You know, what are you using your platform for? And yeah, go ahead, post a picture of yourself doing whatever, because your life hasn't stopped, but lives are stopping around you. So do something about it. So if I'm posting a picture of myself having fun, I want people to know that I still haven't forgotten what's going on. So there's my caption. I'm showing you that, you know, my foot's not off the gas, and I'm telling you what to do. I'm literally spoon feeding it. Like, here's a link with everything.
I'm relentless. And then you have the wrist. I saw the wristband one.
Yeah, and I have these if anyone wants them.
Where can we get those?
My older sister, she went on some, you know, whatever, like Oriental trading or something like that. And she made hundreds of these bracelets, you know, because if you get them in mass, they're really cheap. And she came down, she flew down a couple days ago, and she goes, here, and she just handed me a bunch of them. So if you guys want, I'll send them to you. Just put them in an envelope and send them.
Really quick before, like we said, we jump into the topic. I honestly just thought of this analogy in my head when you said it doesn't matter there's 5 people or whatever, and it kind of transitions really well into my question. I think of social media almost like a movie theater, right? There's a lot of people who go to movies because they're like, oh, look at this fabulous trailer, whatever it is, but then they go to movies and imagine, like you said before, obviously you post pictures of yourself and stuff like that, but within your captions, not only are you being witty and funny and stuff like that, now you're trying to push another message within that. And that got, like you were saying, it got to your point where you wanted to take it to another level, where it's like, yo, I can do more with what I have within my space, and it's within myself that I know better, that I can do better, right? So I'm thinking, hey, imagine you go to a movie theater and all you saw was a still photo, and then you saw like a caption underneath it, and you're like, what the hell is this movie about? Like, oh, it looks cool, or it looks nice. Yeah, but then they'll leave, and that's how you were talking about how you're not losing followers because now you're starting to be honest with yourself. But it's like people like, hey, I don't really like this movie, let me leave. But then you're getting new people, right? Because it's like, oh, damn, I really appreciate her message, right? And it takes now not only your social media or your Instagram, whatever, to a whole nother level, because now it has more of a purpose, right? So somebody who doesn't know you, right? Because me and Juan have got a chance to know you as a person, not only for what you were speaking on before, but just personally, right? If nobody's ever met you before and they just go to your social media, obviously they can tell with their eyes you're an attractive person. Besides looks, what is something about yourself that you feel like people don't get a chance to get to understand? Maybe because you don't want to yet, or that you feel like, they don't really know this about me, but I wish they did.
So like with my social media, people that know me really well and people that don't know me, everybody has like the general consensus that I keep it real on my social media. Like you'll see on my story, I go from, if you click through my story, you'll see justice for Breonna Taylor. Then you'll see a picture of me and my family. Then you'll see like, I can't breathe, all this stuff. Here's a link that you can whatever. Then the next thing you'll see is me eating. So like, you'll see a video of me dancing and doing whatever. Like I'll show whatever, because I feel like a lot of people, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but a lot of people hide parts of themselves from social media that they don't want people to see. I feel like when you come to my social media pages and you see what I post and whatever, it's kind of just whatever's in my brain at the moment. I don't conscientiously post things to convey a certain message, and I also don't ever not post things to convey a certain message. But I feel like something that people don't know about me from just going on my social media is just really like, I mean, I guess you can kind of tell from my captions and stuff, but until you talk to me, like people just write off pretty girls as just that. Like that's that. Whereas once you get to know me, I'm like, yo, what's your PSN? Let's play video games. Like I play the piano. I've played the piano for 14 years. Like I can sing, I can dance. I get really good grades. I'm switching my major to law. Like there are so many other things that go beyond just posting a pretty picture and being funny on the internet. I think I do a pretty good job of like never trying to be that cool person that talks down to people. Like I don't care if you have 2 followers or you're verified. I don't care, whatever. Like if I respond to you, I'm going to be nice about it. I'm never going to just dismiss somebody, because you never know who or what that person is. Like you could be verified and have nothing up here. You just have a blue check, and then you could have 3 followers and be the most amazing person in the world. So I feel like when you come to my profile, you're like, oh, she's pretty and she's funny and she's cool and whatever. But what's more? Like, I feel like I leave it kind of open-ended for people to be like, what's more? Not just like, oh, you're pretty, you're hot, like, let me hit this girl up and go on a date. It's like, what's in your brain, you know?
So they dig for that substance. It gives them something to not, I wouldn't necessarily say long for, but it's like, oh, this person has a lot more to offer. And I think as people now, me and Juan are a little bit older, right? We start to think a little bit more differently. It's not just about looks, because looks fade after a while, man. To be honest, like, and people can manipulate looks. So at the end of the day, it's like people are trying to change what they look like. It's harder to change your thinking process. You can do it over time, but you have to want to do that as a person for yourself. So that's really dope.
We're going to get into the topic now. And I think 2020 has been a year of, like, you know, normally we have years that are ebbs and flows. I feel like it's less so in this year than it was in the past. 2020, I don't know if you remember, when 2020 started with that kid from Australia with dwarfism being bullied online. And that broke my heart because they automatically tried to debunk it and say that he wasn't, like, you know, whatever he was. So the year started off like that. And then we got Kobe and that unfortunate accident, right? And then we had to deal with that because even though we didn't know Kobe, like, we all felt it.
We all felt it, yeah.
Right? And then we had COVID. You know, Ryan and I, a group of us, went on vacation right around the time that they started doing the lockdowns, and we were in the Catskills having the time of our lives. Little did we know that was the last time we could actually enjoy the outside world like that in a group setting. Then we had, from COVID, then we had the untimely, like I mentioned before, death of George Floyd. And that was unfortunate, but it kind of brought back those memories. You mentioned Trayvon Martin. You mentioned all of the other people that have.
I mean, even Ahmaud Arbery,
Ahmaud Arbery. Yeah, and then we're
so long ago, and yeah,
we're getting more. We're getting more now. You know, we got Elijah McClain. Now we're seeing things that were happening around that time, that is just now being brought. You know, that whole movement forced us all as people, not just as, like, friends of, like, Black people and people that have grown up with them, and we want to make sure that their voices are heard and their plight is understood. But now we have to internally have these conversations. Me as a Latino, you all as Latinos, we have to make sure we have now these uncomfortable conversations, because what you mentioned, and what I love that you brought this up, and I think we picked the perfect guest to have this topic with, is you mentioned racism in Hispanic families. And not only that, but you talked about racism and colorism. So what exactly made you think of that, and what are your exact points on that? If you can give us a little bit of that, let's talk about it.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, I have family members who are very dark skinned, and then those who are, you know, a little bit lighter than them. I have all, you know, Dominicans come in all colors. And if there's a color, I got it in my family. My mom's side is my great-grandfather came from Spain directly to the Dominican Republic, and they can trace their lineage back. My great-grandmother on my grandpa's side, on my mom's side, because that was my grandma's, my mom's side is also very white in complexion and everything like that. Their entire family, you know, light eyes, they are all the Spaniard Dominicans. And then my dad's side is all the Taino, Black, you know, where I get my hair from, you know, that side. So when I would go visit my mom's side of the family, all of my cousins, except for a few that, you know, they married other darker skinned people. All of my cousins didn't look like me. They had silky hair, they had light eyes, or, you know, brown eyes, whatever, but they appeared to either not be Hispanic at all and be white, or be like the white Hispanics. And then my dad's side of the family, I don't think any of them can pass for white, you know, none of them. Even the lightest ones they still have very strong Black features. They have, you know, bigger lips and wider set nose, or, you know, the broader shoulders, or whatever, you know, like the beautiful Black features. And I have always felt that within my family and within the greater Dominican Caribbean community, the lighter you are, the more elite you are, or the higher status you convey to people around you in those communities, or they just automatically think that you're better.
Right.
They call you nicknames like La Rubia or Blondie, or if you're darker, they label you already as La Morenita or La Negrita or something. Moreno, you know, like their nicknames go along with your physical features. Almost always. They never call you like, oh, my cute little whatever, or like whatever. They single you out based on your features. And that's something that's not even conscious, you know, like people don't call you that implying something negative unless it's a nickname that's tied to a Black feature. Right. Because it's automatically like, oh, La Rubia, La Blanquita, like whatever, like, oh, she's so cute or whatever. And then you hear like, oh, mi morenito or mi negrito or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And they're associated with bad behavior and, you know, all these other negative connotations, and it's just like, it's subconscious, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And you grow up hearing this and you're not even realizing it until one day you wake up and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And with the racism, my mom, like I told you, is the whiter side. So growing up in where I live, my mom is a physician, so she is very well known in this community.
Mm-hmm.
And because she's of lighter complexion, people automatically assume that she's European or whatever until she speaks Spanish. My dad, you can't look at him and think he's anything other than Black or Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go out with my mom and my sisters, it is a completely different experience than when I go out with my dad. And unfortunately for my mom, she didn't even realize this until I think it was like last year when we told her, like, yeah, when we go out with dad, it's a completely different experience. And she was infuriated because this is not something that she's ever experienced due to the fact that she's white. And when we go to my dad, we experience like people are rude to us and they just dismiss us. Or, you know, my parents both have made themselves in this country. They're both very, you know, they're affluent, they're educated. My dad served in the military for 27 years for a country that won't serve him.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet we could go to a restaurant and I go with my mom and they seat us in the best spot. They show us their specials. They offer us the best wines and stuff that they have. And I go with my dad, here's your table, here's your menu. Sit in, like, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. Your waiter will be there in however long. It doesn't matter. And it's like really opened my sister, especially my older sister, because my younger sister's 14. But my older sister and I have really taken a step back throughout all of this and been like, you know, even though we're not Black, and even, I mean, we don't identify as Black.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into that later. But we don't identify as Black. And even though we're not seen as Black by other people, maybe, you know, because you never know what somebody's thinking, we still experience the racial inequalities. So I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be of darker skin and live in a country that you're just immediately dismissed as, you know, a thug or less than just because of the content of melanin in your skin. It doesn't make sense to me, and it never will make sense to me, no matter who tries to explain it to me.
So I'm glad you broke it down, because this is a perfect way for us to kind of structure this conversation. What you faced with your father, as it pertains to those settings out there, that was racism, right? It wasn't maybe it was passive aggressive racism, right, where they were more snickering, and we'll get into like the Latino colorism in a bit, but going to the racism, I wanted to ask a question, especially because we're talking about law enforcement, and this is what triggered all of this with George Floyd, and then we realized, yeah, systemically everything's messed up. Have you faced anything in terms of like law enforcement pulling you over when you're with your dad versus when you're with your mom? You know, it's a total different behavior.
So fortunately, I've never been in the car with my dad while he's been pulled over.
Okay.
But my dad has an asphalt company,
mm-hmm.
and he works with an asphalt company, and there was a person who had a vendetta against my dad. And this happened like last week, 2 weeks ago. They informed law enforcement that my dad had a piece of stolen equipment in his truck and gave them the license plate. So my dad was pulled over, and without question, you know, they explained what happened. They searched his vehicle, found the piece of equipment, but the serial number did not match the serial number that was obvious. It wasn't stolen. Long story short.
Mm-hmm.
They treated my dad very poorly, even though, so my dad, you know, I told you he's a veteran and he knows how to conduct himself in a very educated, eloquent manner. Mm-hmm. He knew that unfortunately in this country, when you are pulled over and you are not white, how you conduct yourself is a life or death situation.
Yeah. And
that may sound extreme, but I mean, we have so many cases.
And even that is questionable, right? Because you have people that totally comply that end up, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. But it's like, you know, it sounds extreme and people are like, okay, yeah, life or death situation. But I mean, how many cases have we seen that it doesn't matter really how you act? In my dad's case, fortunately, he's never been, I mean, I can't really speak for my dad because there's a lot of things that my dad has gone through that he won't communicate with us because we're all girls and he treats us like princesses and he doesn't want to ever taint our image of the world, even though we're all older and we see it for what it is.
And you see it, yeah.
Yeah. But I know that my mom has been pulled over a million times and this woman has not received a ticket in I don't know how many years. This woman has warning tickets longer than a CVS freaking receipt. But you know, she hasn't received a ticket in however long. In the summer of 2017, I was pulled over 6 times where I live in the same summer. 2 months. And I was a lifeguard for the city where I was a Collier County employee. I got pulled over 6 times. And in those 6 times, my seatbelt wasn't on. And the first time I ever got pulled over was with my sister coming out of school. And they said that they couldn't see her seatbelt because her hair was covering and whatever. Come on. So then I for some reason, I kept getting pulled over. And finally, the last time that I got pulled over, I pulled into my Dunkin' Donuts parking lot that's right in front of my house. And the officer came to my window, and it was just one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. I lowered my window, and he said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I was like, I have absolutely no idea, because I was coming to a stop. So I wasn't speeding. I know that my taillights weren't out because my dad has always made me check them. Like, you know, you turn on your, like, you hit the button and you see your lights, and then you're like, okay, whatever. So I know that didn't happen. My windows aren't tinted at all because this was like almost a brand new car. So I was like, I really have no idea why you're stopping me. Can you tell me why, and how can I avoid this from happening? Because this has happened 5 times already. And he was like, he didn't even ask me for my license or registration, which I had my hands on my wheel because my dad always told me, you keep your hands in sight.
Yep. And
I'm already nervous because this cop does not look like a nice cop. And he goes, "Is there anything in your car?" And I'm like, "Sir, what do you mean? Is there anything in my car?" I'm the only person in my car. My county badge is hanging from my rearview mirror, so I'm confused. I'm like, "No, there's nothing in my car." At this point, I had never drank, I had never done drugs, I had never whatever. So the farthest thing from my mind is that he's thinking that there's something like that in my car.
Right.
And he was like, "Is there anything that I should be worried about in your car?" Again, I'm like, absolutely not. I don't. Then he asked me to step out of the car. Mind you, I'm in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. I know my rights, but I'm not about to fight this cop.
And he still hasn't told you why he's pulled you over.
No, he hasn't told me. He hasn't asked me for my license. He hasn't asked me to identify myself. He hasn't asked me for my registration, which is all, very routine in any traffic stop, no matter what it is. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going to unbuckle my seatbelt, whatever. But I'm asking him as I'm doing all of this very slowly, like, why are you pulling me over? Why is this happening? People are looking at me like this girl's getting taken out of her car. Like, what's going on? He got aggressive with me and opened the door and pulled me out by my arm.
Oh, wow.
And to me, that was a very traumatizing experience because before this, I was agitated at cops because I had been pulled over so many times, but I saw cops as heroes who wouldn't do anything negative to anybody unless they were provoked. In my case, I had done absolutely nothing to this cop. So he said, "Is there anything in your trunk?" I was like, "No." He had me open it. All he saw was my lifeguard gear. Long story short, I went home in tears to my dad. And he was pissed and he was just livid. And I understood why he was upset, but I couldn't understand why he was as furious as he was. And then, he handled it with the police, blah, 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 whatever. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I find out that when my dad was at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, when he was in the Army years and years and years ago, I don't even think I was born, he would get pulled over and taken out of his car and treated like absolute dog, what, until he could prove that he was in the Army. So that to me shows that unless you can prove that you are doing something for those who feel like you should be doing something for, your life doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And when that happened to me with that cop, my eyes, that was when I started being very vocal about what was going on. And I have to admit, I have never been as vocal as I am now. I would see like a hashtag or whatever and repost it and feel like I was doing my social justice work and whatever.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until George Floyd that it was like, all right, I'm done. Yeah. There's no more censoring myself to comfort other people. There's no more me coddling you and telling you why you shouldn't be racist and, saying I love you, but it's wrong to be racist. No, I don't love you anymore.
Yeah,
I'm done.
The levee
love is
broke
gone.
at that point. The levee
exactly.
broke at that point.
Exactly. I'm willing to meet you halfway if you're trying to have a conversation to change things, but don't try to convince me that your racism is right. And that's why back to your question with the whole between my mom and my dad, my mom, now that her eyes have been, because my mom she's experienced secondhand racism. Because growing up, her friends, she grew up in the Bronx and Queens and stuff. So all of her friends were Black. She went to medical school. All of her friends were Black. everybody that was around my mom was black because that's where she felt accepted, even though the skin that she wore every day was white.
Right.
So she faced a ton of secondhand racism. But the difference that I had to explain to her and my older sister explained to her, between her experiencing secondhand racism and her experiencing racism, was that in every situation where she was faced with it, she was able to confront the person who was being racist and say something about it without seeming like the hysteric Black woman that is just, whatever. She was that white savior. And I hate to use that word, but it's true. In every situation, my mom was able to say, hey, you're treating us a certain way because that person's Black, and then made that person feel stupid.
Okay, yeah. So when you say secondhand racism, you're saying she was out with her friends or some around her friends who happened to be Black, and then her friends were getting that racist like rhetoric or jargon or whatever it was.
She was like in a Macy's or something like that with her best friend, and her best friend is a Black woman, and they're both doctors, and they both had money to buy whatever they wanted to buy and whatever. But because her friend asked for a pair of shoes or something, and in a certain size, and the lady looked at her friend and was like, okay, whatever, went around the back and just went to the other side of the store and didn't even bring her back. She looked at her friend and said, we don't have that size. Her friend was like, well, can you go look for it? And she was like, we just don't have that size. And she was like, can you go look for it?
Yeah, no effort.
Didn't even help her. Nothing. Couldn't be bothered. She was following them around the store and whatever. She went to the other side of the store, and then another attendant came to help them. The man brought the shoes to them. It was perfectly fine, whatever. Then my mom went to the other lady and confronted her about it. Now, I had to explain to my mom that she was able to do that without causing a huge scene and being looked down upon because of the color of her skin. She was able to address the racial situation because of the color of her skin.
Yeah.
Because had my mom's friend gone over there and been like, why are you treating me this way because of the color of my skin? Immediately she's going to be written off as a hysterical Black woman who's just yelling about everything, and it's not about race, but you're making it about race, and you're playing the Black card, and you're doing this and you're doing that,
Yeah, I get it.
Now my mom has had all these difficult conversations with even family members, and she's been like, you know what? This is happening. This is real.
Yeah, I'm glad.
It's not something that we can just write off because we're not facing it ourselves.
I'm definitely.
And so my mom is becoming an advocate too.
I'm glad you brought that up because, and Ryan, I think we were talking about this earlier. Before we get into like the colorism topic, I'm glad you segued it perfectly into racism among Latinos and Black people, right? Like that's racism. So I've seen it, and I think that in our families, I'm not sure if you have, Jill, I can't speak for your family, but I know that in most of the families that I've been around, I grew up in the inner city, so I grew up in the projects. I literally was one of the only Latino families in New Brunswick, or Dominican families in the projects. And so most of my friends are Black, there's nothing I can do about that. But I know that even some Dominicans had a specific like stigma about Black people, like, oh, this person is a thug. This person, like, dude, we're living in the same place. You know what I mean? You wouldn't label yourself that way. And Ryan, I'm pretty sure you've had that happen too. But it's weird that we don't come to the defense of the people that are marginalized because we're right behind them. Right?
I say that so much. I say in this country, the most hated people. I mean, if we're going to make a joke about it, let's make a joke about it, because clearly you're not understanding me when I'm not making a joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
But people hate Black people, and then people hate you. And I promise you, if a cop or whoever is chasing you down and they're racist and they have a gun to your back, they're not going to ask you whether you think you're Black or not.
Right. They don't care about it.
And that's simple. I am so, it almost like, and I'm sorry for getting like so ramped up about this, but it is so infuriating to me when I see a person that is, I'm sorry, sir, but if we're going to rate complexion on a scale and 7 is the darkest and you're a 6 and you're saying that, 7s, they're kind of thugs and they're, whatever and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm sorry, sir, but if that person doesn't go out in the sun for some time, they're going to look just like you. And nobody cares whether you think you're Black or not. You're Black.
Yeah.
If a racist is going to come after you and they're going to shoot you in the back, they're not going to ask you whether you think you're Black or not.
Yeah, they're not going to ask you if you voted for Mr. President or anything like that.
You wake up in the same earth as the person that just died. Well, I mean, they're no longer waking up, but you are, because you think that you're something that you're not.
Right.
it is so infuriating to me when people, and then the other side of it is like white Hispanics, when you talk to them about this and they're like, well, I faced a struggle too because I'm Hispanic and I made it out. I did whatever. And I'm like, do you not realize that nobody thought you were Hispanic until you showed them your last name?
Exactly.
So you cannot put yourself on the same level when you didn't start at the same level.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say that. You cannot say that you made it out of the projects or wherever so easily and they should do the same when you had an advantage of 10,000. You know, like you're running the same race, but you're starting here and this person's starting here. Yeah, so it's not fair to compare the two.
Yeah. They call it passing when like a person of one racial group is accepted as a member of a different racial group based, like you said, on the color of your skin. And at the end of the day, it's just privilege. Like, it's privilege. Yeah, you have color, but you have privilege because the shade of your skin. And like you were mentioning earlier, it's like a scale. It's like I don't even know when this begun. And I think I was watching some stuff and they were talking about how it's like deemed that the darker you are, the worse you are. And it makes no sense to me. I never lived in a world in my mind where that was a thing. So I'm still trying to understand how it wasn't even adapted and people live by that stuff. But real quick, I had a question. When did you realize that there was a difference, that you were getting treated differently with your father and then with your mom? Like, at what age did it hit you and you were like, oh, damn, like there is some type of like, you know what I mean? Because as I think back when I was young, I'm like, when did I really start understanding that, yes, there is racism in this world and it's affecting everybody? And you don't have to be a specific age, but like a time where you started noticing it more.
Like what age were you when you got pulled over?
17.
Okay.
You know, I never noticed it, like really noticed it until I want to say a couple of years ago. And the reason why is because, and you know, I hate going back to this, but the president of this country has really made racists not afraid.
100%.
They just really haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed it when I walked into a Louis Vuitton store. And story time. I walked into a Louis Vuitton store after my shift of being a lifeguard because it was around Christmas time. And I saw a bracelet that I wanted so bad. Mm-hmm. And I knew that if I asked for it for Christmas, I could get it. But I didn't want to ask for a bracelet that I had seen online and not know what it looks like in person, especially if it's an expensive bracelet like that. And it was I say only, but it was like $400.
Yeah.
So this is something that I could have purchased myself.
Right.
This is something that I'm sure both of you could purchase yourselves. Like any working person right now, if they have even a little bit of money saved, could purchase this bracelet. Should they? That's a different question. But anybody could, right? So I walk into the store and I'm still in my lifeguard gear and I'm asking the lady, because I see the bracelet and it comes in silver, rose gold, and gold. And I ask her, can I see this bracelet in silver? She puts it on me. And I'm like, oh, you know, I don't really like it that much. Can I see it in gold? And she goes, and she rolls her eyes at me. And mind you, I just came off my lifeguarding shift. So like my hair is all like this and, you know, and like whatever. And I didn't walk in with my purse, which at the time was a Louis Vuitton purse. So I only had my wallet with me. That was just like some random wallet that, you know, and she had just taken one look at me and written me off as someone who couldn't afford to even be in that store. She saw I asked her for the second bracelet. She rolled her eyes at me. She took the first bracelet off me and put it in the thing and like, whatever. And then I was like, oh, damn, I really don't like this one. Can I see the rose gold one? When I asked her for the rose gold bracelet, she looks at me, takes the gold one off and goes, are you even going to buy anything or are we just going to play dress up?
Oof.
And I was like, you know what? I'll take the bracelet. And so she was like, really? Like she was being I couldn't even believe that this is someone that works in an upscale store because she was like so incredibly rude. And she was like, all right, we'll see. And like got to the counter. And so I gave her my mom's information because at those stores, if you've made previous purchases and you have an account with them, they see every purchase that you've had. So I walk up to the counter. She asked me for my name. I give her my mom's name. And her mood just changed. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Miss Romero, blah, 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 like whatever. And how can I, whatever. And I was like, you can keep your bracelet. And like, I basically was just like, I had it. Because I'm not one of those people that's rude no matter.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but did it hit you at that moment what was going on? Like
right when she changed her, because at first I was like, maybe it's because I'm young and like whatever. And,
yeah,
you know.
like,
but then I remembered like, everyone in this town that would even think to go into the Louis Vuitton store and ask, like, and that's my age, they can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most of the people that go shopping in that area and just walk all around and whatever, I was there yesterday. Like, they're my age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about my age. It's about the way that I look.
Yeah.
And it completely changed. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry, whatever. And I was like, you can keep your bracelet. You can keep your little $400 bracelet. Like, I don't, like, just so you know, you need to check how you treat people if you're going to be working in this industry and blah, 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 and whatever. Then her manager came over and he was like, can I tell you what's going on?
So the manager came out and
and I saw him look at this, like, he was like he came over, like, kind of looking at me because I was that hysteric little brown girl at that point. But then I saw him, like, glance at the computer screen, and then he perked up and he was like, what's going on here? Is there anything that I can help with? And I was like, no, another one.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I was like, you guys need to figure out what's going on here and, like, you know, work this out, because clearly, like, you're not going to make any sales from anybody other than white people if you're treating people this way.
Yeah.
And in my self-righteous, you know, self, I thought that I could walk out and slam the door. Little did I know the door was like 5,000 pounds. So I was like,
yo, that's going slow as hell too.
Long story short, though, like, I noticed the racism happening when I was around, like, 17 and stuff, because even, like, I went to private Catholic school growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even realize how many, I was like, there was one actual Black girl, and I love her to death. I still talk to her. She's amazing. But she was adopted by white people.
Okay.
And then there was me. She was the Black girl, and then I was the other Black girl.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have silky straight hair, even though my entire childhood was me trying to get silky straight hair.
Mm.
And, you know, I would wear my hair curly in a ponytail or whatever, and people would be like, how'd you get your hair so curly? Did you get a perm or something? And I'd be like, I wet it. I put water on it. Like, so it was like, growing up, I didn't even realize these little microaggressions that happen.
Mm-hmm.
That led me to realize now that, holy crap, my entire life has revolved around the fact that other people don't see me for what I am.
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation with my sister, and it's like, we were taught at such a young age to not assimilate into our surroundings, but to be someone that we're not.
Mm.
It's not like, oh, this is your culture and you can have it, but, like, kind of water it down for other people. It was like, no, forget your culture when you're around other people and be the person that they want you to be.
Mm.
Don't walk around. I remember bringing mango and salchichon to school for lunch one day, and people were like, ew, what is that? And I never wanted to do it again.
Oh my God.
They were like, Jill's eating green, whatever. And I never wanted to bring it back to school, because it was like, these kids don't know what I'm eating, so they're going to write me off as a weird person that's eating this weird stuff. And I know that this happens in so many other cultures, because I've seen it firsthand.
It sucks because, you know, especially when you're younger, you just want to be accepted by your peers, right? So how do you prepare? And this is what I especially Black parents have to do with their kids, is how do you prepare them? Right? Like, how do you possibly prepare them for something like that? Because you had I guess it was more of like a wake up call, like Ryan was asking you. At that moment, you realize what was happening. But before, if you start thinking back, maybe there were other incidents.
There's
like,
so many.
Yeah.
So many. But it's like, I didn't even realize that these were the things that were happening until I was old enough to really be like, whoa!
Yeah, like, no.
Y'all are racist! Like,
Yeah.
racist! And growing up where I grew up, it's like, it happens every day. I've been called the N-word with the hard R before. And I'm like, I mean, okay, if you want to say that, but really, I think you're looking for spick, not like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, they don't even care anymore. They don't care. If they're going to be racist, they're going to shove it in your face. And I saw a post today on Twitter that I was like, wow, that ties perfectly into everything I've been saying. Because a girl asked for, it was like an eyelash appointment or something like that. And she asked for some more information about her schedule. And then the girl was like, she called her the N-word with a hard R. And she's like, I'm not even Black. Like, I'm Hispanic. And she goes, oh, you wetback, whatever, you border jumper. Like, and it's like, they don't care.
They don't care. It goes back to your point that you stated eloquently, that they don't care.
They don't.
They don't care.
They don't.
They won't.
And it's so much harder for Black people. And I will say that till the day I die, because it's the truth. It's so much harder for Black people because they are immediately labeled as an N-word to racists, and they are just berated and they're tore down and they are treated like second-class citizens. When the Constitution was written, they were 3/5 of a person. They will always have it harder. always, because of the color of their skin. For us, ambiguous, looking racially ambiguous, you know, is she brown? Is she black? Is she white? Is she mixed? Is she whatever? We have it hard too, because in my own family, now I'm struggling with, I don't know if this person in my family is on my side or not, you know? It's like, at least if I was completely black, I know that everybody in my family feels the same way because everybody's treated the same way. We all, like, if I was 100% black, my whole family was too, at least I know that everybody in my family has been treated the same way, is being treated the same way, and feels the same way about it. Now, I'm having fallouts with family members. I'm distancing myself from family members. I haven't spoken to some family members in months because it's like the person that I thought you were and the person like with your morals and everything like that, if you're fighting me because I'm saying Black Lives Matter, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, you're black. You may not be black, but you have black heritage. Like, what? It blows my mind that there are people that can genuinely just negate their history. And I'm educating on you on your history. So it's not like you're ignorant to it. You just choose to be ignorant to it. And that is a privilege in itself.
Yeah, and I think what happens with Latinos, and again, Ryan and I were talking about it. We love having these conversations, and it's the word colorism. And initially, when I used to think of colorism, I thought automatically about racism, right? I was like, okay, they're one and the same. And then I started really doing a deep dive on what colorism is, and I said, wow, they're not the same thing, right? Like, because colorism can be, it's specifically within the same race. And I think that this is why, and this is probably the root of why Latinos are so divided as they are, right? And I want to give Alice Walker credit because she was the author of a 1983 book, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. And she basically defined colorism as prejudicial or preferential treatment of same race people based solely on their color. And I had no idea that's what it was about. And it's not limited to just Latinos, right? Because you have Italians that have Sicilians, right? Sicilians are naturally darker, and there's always been a beef there, right? So there's some sort of colorism there. But even in the Caribbean, I heard about
in black culture, like light skins
exactly.
are more represented in everything.
Historically, you'll see, and it's been made a joke, right? But you'll see, oh, he acting light skin, right? Or, oh, you know what I mean? Or she's acting light skin. So there's colorism even between black people, right? Specifically with Latinos, I think that's why, because of the spectrum, like, range that we have, like, I have cousins, my nephew is the whitest of whites, right? Like, and my cousin who's a cop, he's the whitest of white, right? But then I can give you people in my family that, like, you can tell there's Haitian in my family. You can tell at some point, you know, and they're treated so much more differently than the lighter skinned people in my family. And even with other Dominicans, let's say you were in another family, you're a Dominican woman, and you bring a darker skinned Dominican to the house. No matter who this person is, he can be a future attorney general. This person is going to be looked at a lot differently because we do have those internal colorism biases within our own. And I definitely wanted to talk about that because I really never knew exactly how to, like, classify that. And I've seen it so much. So, like, Ryan and Jill, I'll ask both of you, have you ever seen that specifically in your own circles where now you think back and say, that's exactly what that is, and that's probably why this person is the way they are?
For me, and it's within even my family, it's such much of a blend of racism mixed with colorism, that you get to a point where you treat people a certain way where you wouldn't treat people, or you do treat people who are even in your family the same exact way, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, as I grew up, me and Juan kind of grew up in the same area. And my family was fortunate enough to move us to a suburban area. And I grew up in more of a suburban town. But growing up, I understood that neighborhood, right? I understood I was surrounded more around my type, Spanish, African Americans. So that was normal to me, right? I never saw people within color. I just saw bad people and good people. It wasn't color. My mother, on the other hand, she might have had encounters with certain people where she had just preconceived judgments, right? So as I grew older, and this kind of ties into that same point, the reason I asked you, Joe, when did you realize that racism was a thing and it was affecting not only us, but the people that we love? I got fortunate enough to live in a suburban area where it's everybody there. It's not predominantly anything. So I do have white friends. I do have Hispanic friends. I do have Black friends. And I remember one day I brought one of my African-American friends home, and my mom was like, and I can say this in good faith now because I know my mom has grown as a person. And I've had these conversations with her. I can't say verbatim what she said exactly because I don't remember, but she's like, why do you have this person in my home? And I'm like, Mom, why are you thinking like that? Like, what's wrong with this person? And obviously in my head, I started to realize, oh, she's saying that because he's African American. Like, she wouldn't say that if he was Spanish or if he was white, right? And then I'm like, I could have easily let that affected me and had the same morals and thoughts she had, but I didn't understand why she felt that way until I eventually asked her, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, and letting her know, hey, look, it's not based on what people's skin color is you might have just dealt with bad people. It wasn't that the color of their skin was the reason they were being bad to you. And now you carry this through a certain race or whatever. So we've had these conversations. And now when we talk about colorism within our own families where your family member could be lighter than you or whatever, and they think they're better because they have more of a privilege. So going off of that question that you asked, P, that's definitely something that in that moment in my life, it was like, wow, like my own mom saw the world like that at one point. And I understand why some people grow up racist because they don't have that knowledge to be like, hey, I know better, right? Like maybe I had the thinking or maybe I had my own like views where it's like, you know what? That's not right. Like I knew right from wrong at that point and I defended not only friends because I knew they were good people, but just good morals.
Yeah, and you were able to call her out at that, which is
and like, and I know she didn't have bad intentions. It's just that's all she knew at that point, right? So it was my job as her son, who was growing up in a different time, right, to be like, hey, Mom, this is not what it is. Like, judge somebody based on what you see. If we had somebody in our family who was the same color, like, you wouldn't be saying, hey, what are you doing in my house? Like, so
I think for me, absolutely. There's been so many cases of colorism in my own family. There's a lot of different levels of this to me because growing up and we would go back to DR and stuff and my family members that had people working in their houses, there were always women that were darker than them.
Yes.
And they were always, everybody. I mean, we had family members, El General Wessing, that was like the general of the army that was at Trujillo's time, which I'm just now, like literally right now as we speak, putting it together. But Trujillo was not a good guy.
No.
He was a very racist general. We could get into the Dominican history because I went down a rabbit hole the other day.
He's the king of colorism. Yeah, he was the king of colorism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Ryan, before you finish your point, and Ryan, maybe your mom had this because in the era of Trujillo, darker people were bad people.
Yeah.
And they were demonized.
That's what that's where I was going with it because even now they're called Trujillistas or something like that. But in the time of Trujillo, he was the dictator of the Dominican Republic, and he was in cahoots with Hitler. He was having Jews come over to the Dominican Republic to purar la raza, or to purify the race, to make Dominican people whiter, to make them look more European looking. And Haitians, the whole tension with Haiti and everything like that is Trujillo would see a black person and tell his army, shoot them on sight. Point blank, period. If you see a black person and they are on our land and they can't prove that they should be here, shoot them and kill them and throw them away. And that like even makes me like kind of emotional because how do you see a person? And they could be a father, they could be a brother, they could be a mother, a sister, an aunt, a nephew, an uncle. They could be whoever. And because they are not the same skin color as you, you think that they are worth nothing. But that, we could go on hours and hours about that. But that, I think the start of the whole...
Not to cut you off, as crazy as that seems to us, this is how people think nowadays. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around racism when I see it blatantly. Like, even when I'm on Instagram, when I see people just saying blatant racist, I just want to jump through these screens and just hit people in the face because I'm like, do you even realize what the hell? Yeah, it gets me so furious because I'm like, and again, we think differently, right? But it's like, what did you go through to get to that point of thinking?
I even try to play devil's advocate sometimes, like to myself, never to anybody else, because I don't think that the devil belongs in any situation. So when people say, I'm just going to play the devil's advocate, I'm like, well, the devil lost. So remember that. But I even try to say like, okay, and I can't come up with anything. And then I'm like, you are so racist to the point that if you put in writing or you are being recorded, you are going to lose your job, unless you're a cop. You're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your livelihood, you're going to lose everything because you are either being screenshotted or recorded or shared or whatever. I've gotten 4 people fired since this thing happened. Anonymously, because I'm not trying to die. But I've gotten 4 people fired from the beginning, because it's like, you are so racist to the point where you know that people can share whatever you're saying and you don't care in the moment. I know that if I'm being recorded, you know what? I'm not gonna, push them. Like, I'll never get it. First of all, I don't fight people.
Mm-hmm. I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all.
No, I'm just kidding. My mom would kick my ass. No, I don't fight people. But if there's a camera there and I was about to get into a fight,
yeah,
I think my first thing is going to be like, you know what? I don't want to get arrested.
Right.
I don't want to get fired. I don't, want to be seen as a person that fights people. So maybe I'm just going to, whatever. Yeah. Racists, on the other hand, will type out whatever they're thinking, or will look at a camera and yell at the camera, knowing damn well that they're either going to make national news or get fired. But they'll still be, and it's like your hate is so deep that you are willing to lose everything because you know that there's a community of people that think your way that are going to support you.
Oh my God! Yeah.
The I can't even say the word right now.
Repercussions.
The repercussions.
Yeah. They're not scared. They're not scared to be racist, and that's the thing. I think it's a lot of people aren't afraid of these. At the end of the day, yeah, I guess you can be whatever you want, but like morally, like how do you go to sleep at night knowing you're treating people like that? Like that's I can never.
There's a grocery store. Before I get back to the question, there's a grocery store here called Oaks Farm. And I'm going to say all the names because this man has made it public, so I'm going to make it public too. Here are the receipts. There is a grocery store, and then he also has another grocery store and a restaurant and another thing, whatever. And it's called Oaks Farm. And the owner of it, Alfie Oaks, is a diehard, he just loves Trump. He loves everything about Trump. Mm-hmm. And I mean everything, all of it, everything, all of it. I mean, if this man could lick Donald Trump's everything, he would.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the COVID thing, he was on his Facebook saying something about, COVID is fake. This is a ploy by the liberals and the mainstream media to get people to lose money into whatever and to control, like something else is coming. And then when George Floyd died and all these protests started happening, Alfie Oaks took it upon himself to go on his Facebook yet again and say again how COVID is a hoax and how Black Lives Matter is a hoax and how George Floyd, yes, he shouldn't have died the way that he died and all this other stuff and whatever. But at the same time, he was a thug and he was on drugs and he was this and he was that. Meanwhile, you have people posting his DUI mugshot in the comments. Now, there were Black Lives Matter protests happening in Naples. So Alfie Oaks, again, took it upon himself to create an All Lives Matter protest, the first of its kind in this country, actually. And at his place of business, Oaks Farm, he had an All Lives Matter protest with over 400 people with Trump signs and all this other stuff saying All Lives Matter, excuse me. Now, I feel personally, and I don't know, this isn't fact, this is my opinion, but if you can go to any protest for or against Black Lives Matter and promote a political party, then clearly you're aligning that party's views with your social views. Exactly. Meaning, if I'm at an All Lives Matter protest against Black Lives Matter, first of all, if you're saying All Lives Matter as a counter to Black Lives Matter, then you're racist. But if you are then promoting a political candidate
exactly
with your All Lives Matter, then clearly you're saying that candidate aligns its views with that and put 2 and 2 together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The worst part of it is Starbucks faced backlash because an employee wanted to wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And they said you can't bring politics into the place of business. And that's where it gets misconstrued because Black Lives Matter isn't political.
No.
It's not political.
It's about life.
And I had that problem a lot when I first started saying all this stuff about Black Lives Matter on my stories and everything like that. I had family members reach out to me and tell me to stop being so political and polarizing on my stories. And I had to tell them, I'm not being political because I never mentioned a political party. I'd never engaged in any anti-conservative or Republican rhetoric. I'd never said anything regarding, Trump or anything that has to do with the government or politics or anything. So if you're interpreting me saying that a black man shouldn't get a knee on his neck or shot in the back or whatever just because they're black, and you're saying that that's wrong and that I'm being political, then clearly you need to check what your political views are.
Yeah. And you need to check where your standards are as a human being. That's the thing about that. They've weaponized patriotism, right? That they now, when you see an American flag being waved, you want to be proud as an American, but then you also wonder what is their agenda, right? Like, because now when you see Black Lives Matter, they've turned that into like, well, it's Antifa, or, you know, it's somebody with, like Rudy Giuliani yesterday came out and said, Rudy Giuliani, who's like a wonderful human being himself. God bless him. Rudy apparently says that Black Lives Matter, that they want to take your house away. They want to take your, like, he went on this rant on Twitter, and I'm like, where did this come from? Just by simply saying that we understand, and it doesn't need to be said that all lives matter. We understand that, and it's obvious in the privilege.
Because they already do. All the rest of them
yeah,
do.
they already matter. The case is that we're trying to equalize and say that these matter as well. It sucks that it didn't start off as a Black Lives Matter 2 movement, right? Because maybe that would have made them think of something else to complain about, but you shouldn't have to say it. It should go without saying because the proof is obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the colorism thing, when you said, when did I realize it happened in my family? I think subconsciously it happened at such a young age because I remember coming back to my sister. First of all, before that, I remember people, my cousins, teasing me by saying, Joel's going to be the one that ends up with a black guy.
Oh.
Like that was, they would always tease me about it. And I didn't even realize that by me saying, like me getting offended at that, like they would be like, oh, Jill's going to be the one with the black guy and she's going to have the black kids and she's whatever. And I'd be like, shut up. Like, that's going to be you or that's going to be you. I was conditioned to believe that that was a bad thing.
Yes, I get you.
You know, like over and over again, they would drill in me so many times like that was something negative to the point where I would get upset about it and I would pin it on other people as like a bad thing. Now I'm like, I am. Probably probably.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was something that, you know, growing up was instilled in me until I took the time to say, you know what, I'm an adult. And there are things that, you know, you grow up with, but it's my responsibility now to reverse those things and to see the world in a different way. And I think a lot of people use their past as a crutch to explain the things that they're doing in the present day. And I feel like any adult, once you become an adult, it's your responsibility to undo the trauma and to undo the things that are taught to you in a negative way to turn your views and your life into something positive.
Yeah.
And another thing that like really is a memory that I have is when I was in high school, I liked a guy or something. And I came back to my sister and I was like, I like this boy and he looks white and his family has money, but he's Panamanian. So he can also understand like our culture and stuff, but he appears white. So like he'll be accepted and stuff and whatever. She was excited. And I'll never forget that. Like my excitement was about the fact that he appeared white, but he was Hispanic. So like we could, you know, share in some things like Hispanic wise and all this stuff, but he appeared white. So socially we would be like, we would look good together.
That was an incentive to you. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate.
And then I went to high school, or I was in high school at that time. And I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget that the same kid that I went to prom both years with black guys. And my parents loved him. My mom still asks about him. We're still friends. We talk today, like whatever. But the kid that I liked so much that I went to my sister and I was like, and we never dated or anything like that, but the kid that I liked so much was supposed to take me to prom, and he put off asking me for so long that when my friend asked me to go to prom with him, and the kid that I had previously spoke about hadn't asked me yet, he texted me that day and he was like, you really said yes to this black guy that blah, 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 when I could have taken you to prom. And he made it all about this black kid asking me to prom. And
it wasn't about the kid. It was about the fact that he was a black.
Yeah. And I was like, so you're mad at me because you hadn't asked me to prom yet, 2 weeks before prom. So I said yes to someone else. But you're not mad that I said yes to someone else. You're mad that I said yes to a black guy over you.
Wow.
And not even over him. He just never asked.
But like the fact that he was like, well, I'll still take you to prom. And I was like, no. He was like, yeah, well, good luck. Like you think you're going to look better with a black guy than you would with me in those pictures and blah, blah, blah. And then when I went to prom, that was my senior year. But when I went to prom my junior year with a black guy that was older than me, people were questioning, like people were texting me after they saw my prom pictures and they were like, you're dating a black guy? Like, how do your parents feel about it? And I wasn't even dating him. He was just another friend. And people would be like, people were texting me like, are your parents okay with that? And I'd be like, yeah, my parents. Like, and they're like, but isn't he Haitian? I'd be like, yeah. A Haitian woman raised me. I had a Haitian nanny for 10 years of my life. I speak French. I can say any prayer in French that you want me to. Haitian people are like my favorite people in the world besides Dominicans. Because this woman taught me everything I knew from the time that I was 2 to the time that I was 12. And I still talk to her all the time. And I still wish her happy birthday. And she still wishes me happy birthday. And she's still a family member of mine. So it's like, yeah, no, my parents didn't give a crap. But the fact that you think that you can text me asking me if my parents cared, like, first of all, who are you to text me that? And second, like, didn't know you were racist, but now you're blocked.
Yeah, but thank you for identifying yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
And what are your parents telling you? Like,
yeah.
like you're scared. You're worried for my life. Like, I'm worried for your life. Like, are you okay? Like,
and it's unfortunate that now, fast forward to now, I've had to block family members from seeing my stories. Not because I don't want them to see what's going on and like I'm afraid of like what they have to say, but because I am so tired of them thinking that they can go to my other family, because none of them have spoken to me personally. None of the family members that I know have an issue with me and my advocacy and all this stuff, none of them have come to me and said this, this, and this. Even one family member of mine wrote in a group chat about how he stayed up all night to write an answer, a thing to me, and he couldn't figure out what to say to me and blah, blah, blah. But yet he wrote this whole paragraph to the rest of my family. And it's like, you could write that paragraph, but you couldn't think of what to say to me.
It's basically
and
like,
so I haven't even spoken to him yet.
It's basically like insinuating that there's something wrong with you. So that's why he has to go and like preach to them.
And honestly, like, you can say what you want about me, because if your biggest issue with me is that I care about other people, then like, that's a great problem to have. Thank you. Like,
and maybe losing me will eventually make you realize like where
I mean, if it does, cool. And if it doesn't, like, I'm sorry, you're lost. But it's so sad that like these times are really showing people's true colors. And it took this to see who those people are. And I was telling my sister, like, 2020, in the beginning of 2020, everyone was like, 2020 is going to be a great year. We're going to have 2020 vision, 2020 this, 2020 that. And you know what? For a while, I was like, damn, 2020 just sucks. I mean, now that we're having like Sahara desert winds, like cover all of Puerto Rico and stuff.
Earthquake, all that stuff, yeah.
It's just one thing after another. It's just one thing after another. But I told my sister, like at first I was like, this year sucks. Like, this is the worst year I've ever had in my entire life or whatever. I'm like, this is actually one of the best years. For everybody. I don't care who you are, because change is uncomfortable. When you're growing, when you're younger, you have growth pains, you have growing pains, you have body pains. If you're moving to a new city, you have the pain of having to move into whatever and start a new thing and meet new people. If you're moving up in life, you have to worry about opening new bank accounts and this and that and all this. Like, every time you change anything in life, it's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's whatever. So this year has brought a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort and a lot of loss and a lot of gain. But this year, I feel, is like going to be the catalyst to a lot of change, because there's a lot of things that are changing that I'm like even the smallest things, like boards between tables outside and stuff. Why wasn't that a thing years ago? Like, I don't want to be eating and having a conversation with a table next to me. Like, that happened because of COVID, but I hope it stays forever, because that's great. Like, I went to the nail salon today, and there was like a thing between me and the lady, like the plexiglass thing. But then I realized, like, there's no need for me and that lady to be breathing the same air, like, back and forth, you know? So maybe the plexiglass thing wasn't a bad thing. Like,
half of them would be wearing masks anyway.
Exactly. And like, my whole thing is like, did Ahmaud Arbery have to die? Did Breonna Taylor have to die? Did George Floyd have to die?
No. Absolutely
not. And I will never, ever, ever say, like, you know what, at least things are coming. Like, no, I'll never use them as like martyrs or saviors or all this stuff. I will never do that, because they didn't ask for it. A martyr is someone who sacrifices himself for the greater good on their terms. That, or, you know, they're a hero in some sense.
Yeah.
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Elijah, all these people did not wake up that morning saying, I'm going to die for social justice.
Mm-hmm.
They woke up saying, you know what, I wonder what I'm going to eat today. I'm going to blah, blah, blah.
Hey.
So I'm never going to justify their killings, but I will say that I will not let them die in vain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of what's going on. The unfortunate beauty, obviously, but that's why we're happy we got you on, because it's not about just like talking about it, but it's to our viewers also, if you're experiencing colorism or racism in your family or be around you, in the comment section below, or you can always email us and have a conversation, or add Jill. She's obviously willing to put you in your place or educate you, whichever one you want.
In a nice way.
Yeah, but I'm a Latino, and I was talking to Ryan about this before we get into our challenge. I have a few things. What can we do to make it different, right? So I'm hearing this and I'm seeing that maybe I subconsciously am, or I've seen it around me, colorism or racism. So what can I do to change what's going on either around me or to educate myself more?
Are you asking?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What do you feel like as a Latino that you need to see more of, like, people to do? Like, what can I do? What can we do?
I think that a lot of Latinos stay in their bubble of Latinidad.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, because Latinos have struggles in this country too. I mean, we also face pride. We're immediately written off as Mexicans, and seen, and the term Mexican is used as a weapon.
Yeah.
Because, like, cool, thank you for calling me Mexican. I love Mexican culture. Cool. Yeah. But, like, it's used as a weapon. So I feel like a lot of, and I feel like a lot of times Latinos get lost in their own struggles and don't care about the struggles of others. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, yes, this is really bad and this sucks for them and everything like that. But we have a lot of struggles too. So Latinos' lives matter. And I've heard these words. That's why I can say that. I've literally, well, not heard, it was written out, but I saw someone say this to me.
I saw it too.
And I get it. We struggle. We all struggle. White people can struggle too. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody can struggle, but in terms of Latinos and Blacks and Arabic people and just, we all struggle because of the way that we look, but Black people struggle in a completely different way too.
Yeah.
And Latinos lose the fact that they're struggling a lot harder, because yes, our struggles are hard, but theirs are a lot harder. And we have privileges that they don't, unless you're a Black Latino. And even then, you can still kind of be like, oh, well, but I'm Dominican. Like, I mean, you shouldn't, but people do it.
I get it. No, and in your family, you have a perfect example, too, of the spectrum range that we have. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel like, I know that you guys are super, like, you're open to learning new things, and you're not closed-minded, and you are very accepting of other people and whatever. And I, by all means, am not a perfect social human being that, whatever, but I have gone out of my way to educate myself on certain things and not make it the responsibility of those that are struggling to educate me on their struggle.
Right.
And I think that that's super important, because Black people are already struggling. I'm not going to ask them to explain their struggle to me. I'm going to go learn it for myself.
Exactly.
And while I'll never be able to experience it for myself the way that they do, I can still educate myself on what they're struggling and how they're struggling on.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that's really important. So that's one of my answers. And the other answer that I have is because, and this kind of ties into my challenge a little bit, but because you're so open-minded, and because, you both know a lot of people and you talk to a lot of people and, whatever, I think having more conversations with people that you wouldn't regularly have conversations with is really important. Mm-hmm. Because I have personally seen I've written off people as racist automatically. Like, there's a certain look some people have that you're just like, you're definitely probably racist, But upon everything that's happened and talking to more people about this issue, I can't do that anymore, because I've been surprised. A lot of people that seem like they would just write me off as another brown or Black girl or whatever have really not been that way at all. And the biggest plot twist of 2020 is that, for me, like, seeing how many people I think would just be regular Karens and, whatever, really, really push for Black Lives Matter. And so that to me is another thing that, Latinos like us, and I say like us, meaning we're Americanized Latinos that recognize the struggle in this country. People like us need to educate both the non-Americanized Latinos that feel that they can, you know, brush other people's struggles off, and the Americanized Latinos that are still, you know, appropriating and appreciating and perpetuating, you know, Black culture and all this stuff and whatever, but not the struggles that they face.
Yeah. Okay. No, I appreciate
that. And really quick, like you said, not only are we starting to check ourselves as individuals, but we got to start, if we do really love these people, right, we got to start checking them, because it's harder to love somebody who doesn't understand not only how you feel, right? And I think this is why it's hard for, I want to say predominantly white people, right, to combat this stuff, because a lot of these people depend on the people who raised them to make these decisions for them. Like when I combat my mom, I'm like, hey, that's not right. Like a lot of people can't do that. Like they can't fight that fight, right? And it's, I don't want to put them as a victim, because they're not really victims. But at the end of the day, it's like, when are you going to make a decision for yourself? And like you said earlier, like you can't be 30 and be like, hey, I don't want to upset my mom. You're your own human being. If you feel like that's wrong, it's wrong. Have that own thought for yourself and defend it. And if you got to disown people because of that, I mean, it is what it is. But
I think people are confusing these conversations with disrespect a lot, because you don't have to be disrespectful. And it took me a little bit to step back and not be combative or inflammatory when having these conversations, but it's not disrespectful to tell someone that they're wrong.
Yeah, I think
it's your delivery.
Yeah,
you know?
I also think that we're passionate about it because we can't like understand, right, what they're specifically going through, but we feel it and we know there's something wrong, right? So you know what, I'm gonna make sure that I am fighting that fight with them. And if it is but you're right. I think that sometimes you have to temper that passion and make sure that it's coming out the right way, is delivered the right way, because hate is going to deliver it angrily. Hate is going to get impatient. Love, if it's coming from a place of love, it should always be patient. If they get the message, then, you know, that's on them. But I'm going to keep repeating my message, and I'm going to keep drilling it in. You might as well not even interact with me, because you're not going to like it, right? And another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a perfect moment for us to get into our Talk Down challenge. And Jill actually brought it with her little handy dandy notebook. So without further ado,
upside
Jill.
Down. Okay. So for my Talk Down challenge, I challenge you both and the viewers to learn something about history, culture, people, and the people around you, and share that knowledge, whether it be with, you know, the people in your circles, your family members, whoever, because the more that we change the people around us, they change the people around them, and that's how the world changes.
Perfect. I love it. I'm going to definitely take that challenge. I hope everyone here is going to take that challenge. If you want to share with us, comment section below. I think that this is a type of episode that I feel like we've always wanted to have, and this is why we started Talk Down, because again, we like talking up positive things, and we like making sure that our platform is so that even if I'm in a rut one day or Ryan's in a rut, we can go back and look at these episodes and say, and kind of like, you know, recalibrate, for lack of a better term. And I appreciate you coming on, Jill. I know that this is time consuming, and I really appreciate you. Just these two strange Dominican guys are just randomly but but you definitely have a friend in us. We definitely would love to have you back for another topic, because I know it'd be nice and spicy.
I have so many.
What we do also like doing is before we let you go, do you have anything, it doesn't have to be on topic, that you want to leave our viewers with?
Mind your business. But not everything is only your business. So minding other people's business these days is important too. Hey, and that's all I got to say.
Just because you see it on social media does not make it your business.
Amen.
Right, so the episode is over, but the conversation continues.
As always, make sure you subscribe below. Drop a comment if you got this far. If you've gotten this far, we appreciate you. Thank you, Jill, again, for coming on with us. We appreciate your time and your thoughts. We do not take that stuff for granted. As always, tell a friend to tell her friend to tell all of her friends to follow us. And we'll check out in the next episode. And thank you, guys.
They let it talk down when I'm not around, yeah. It's only tied down when I'm out of town, no. I don't trust many when I'm in the city. I've never been a shooter, but I keep them with me. Watch 'em